Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber with Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing really, really well, man. So we were just riffing, trying to think about a third topic, and you're like, you know what? Let's just put it out there. Let's create a video and tell people exactly how to get started in real estate and get their first property, whether it's a home, building, whatnot. So thank you for that. Let's. What do you think? Where do people start, in your opinion?
So this is where the rubber meets the road. So with this video, it's all about action. So you can educate yourself. We talk about that, pour into yourself. There's all kinds of information, but at some point you got to put it into action and you have to start and you have to start somewhere. So number one, understand the market that you're in. Start where you are, start with what you know. Don't worry about, can I invest here, out of state, this, that, or the other. Number one, pick a property type that appeals to you. Are you interested in single family homes? Are you interested in commercial buildings? Are you interested in land development? So number one, figure out what it is you're interested in. Make sure you understand what that is and what the language and the metrics of that type of real estate is, whether it's houses, land, whatever. Just understand all of that. What I mean by that is, what are the values? How many are in your market? What's the demand? What's the inventory look like? What's the supply? What's the values? How is it valued? Is it valued by, if it's land, is it the square foot, the acre, whatever? If it's a house, is it valued, by the square foot, or is it valued, based on income, if it's an income producing property? So understand all those things and language of it, and then learn, whether you have money or not, learn how to use creative financing if you don't have money, so that you can go out and get a property on terms. If you have people that have money that want to invest with you, you could raise that capital. So learn how to raise that capital, and then get out there and target what it is and start looking at deals. And you can look at the MLS to study houses and land. You can look at LoopNet to study commercial properties. And there's a lot of things that you can learn in the description, the offering memorandum of those properties. It tells you all about the metrics, how those properties are valued, all of the details that you need to know. So you can really start learning about those properties and then start making offers. So you will never buy a property that you don't make an offer on. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they just don't know how to make an offer. And if you're going after houses, one of the great ways to do that is to get a realtor to work with you. They can make a number of offers for you. You can go and do for sale by owner, and you can make offers directly with owners if you know what you're doing. Same thing on commercial properties. You can go directly to the owners. A lot of ways you can do that. You can get to the property records in your area, get a list of property owners, kind of figure out what your niche is and who you want to contact, and then start contacting them. But the key is educate yourself, learn your market, know the business, know the type of real estate you want to get into, understand the financial fundamentals, know where you're going to get the money from, and then start making offers and make a lot of offers. You're not going to get a property after 1 or 10 or 50 or maybe even 100 offers sometimes. As competitive as it is right now, you might have to talk to a lot of people. So that's the key right there to getting started.
That's amazing. And it's surprising enough follows my course. So I have a course. It's called How to Get Started One Rental at a Time. Step one, I call it a buy box, right? What is your buy box? You called it asset type, location, exactly that. Because again, I usually talk to full-time employees. My answer is go create your buy box. It has to be a very tight buy box, right? When I tell people in the course, try to get between 20 and 40 active listings, right? Because it has to be something you can get through in 10 to 20 minutes, right? I want you to document whatever your search criteria is, save it, do whatever you want. And then I want you to look at that buy box every day for 60 or 90 days. And I want you to document what's changed, what got added, what came off, what got price reduced, what came off and then came back. Because what I want you to do, to your point, is I want you to learn that market. I want you to know that buy box better than anybody else. And I always tell people what I did, right? So I chose a market I never lived in, didn't know anybody in. So I had to learn something from scratch. Or it's not like I had 50 years of history in Fresno, California. I'd never been there in my entire life. So I picked a zip code, too big. I picked a zip code and an asset type, too big. I picked a zip code, asset type, and size. Three or four bedrooms between 12 and 1,500 square feet in the Mayfair district. And I looked at that every day for 3 years. That was all I bought for 3 years, because I didn't have time to go anywhere else, right? Because what you find, even in a market like Fresno, California, if I'm in this part of Fresno and I try to compare it to this part of Fresno, it's not the same. Rents are different. It's too noisy if you're just trying to figure it out. So go get dedicated to the buy box. The next thing I would tell people is don't fight the process. My process to a better financial future via real estate works. Thousands of people are doing it. I hate it when people come back to me after 3 or 4 days and say, Michael, nothing changed. I haven't done anything. I've been doing it for 20 years. I still do the same thing for after 20 years. Go do it again. Stop trying to outthink the process. It will come to you, and it will take 60 or 90 days. What I tell people then is, okay, after you do that, focus, daily discipline, then it's about understanding the math, right? I want you to understand what an average deal is. In my market, I talk about yield. Some people call it cash on cash, whatever you want to be. Because once you know average, it's like the world opens up. If average in my market of Fresno is 6%, well, damn it, I don't want to do average deals, Greg. I want to do great deals. So I'm going to go look for 8s and 9s. And then once you start doing all of that, you build your network, you understand creative financing, you understand seller carry and, sub two and, all of these other things. But to me, it really starts with getting a buy box. And I want you to be laser focused. That means stop looking at other cities, stop looking at other things, because anything you look at extra, you're actually going to go backwards. This is when you're learning a new market that you've never lived in, never been at. If you don't get hyper focused, anything extra, you actually go backwards. It becomes negative leverage. So that's a big thing I talk about in my private Facebook group all the time is focus, focus, focus.
Yeah. And, so you said something there, good deal. What's a good deal? I get that from people all the time is, what's a good deal? Should I buy a property now when properties that are all-time highs? There's 2 ways to make money in real estate and only 2 ways. 1 is cash flow. 2 is exit. When you sell, appreciation, equity, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it. You're either selling a property and you have a spread or you're making money monthly. So if you're buying income property based on the month, and let's say it's a single family home or a multifamily, average multifamily building, you've got to have at least a $300 to $500 a month spread minimum. You don't want any less than that because, repairs, things like that, capital expenditures can catch you, taxes can go up, things like that. So that gives you a little bit of a cushion. As far as the return on your down payment, that's up to you. Whatever you want to have as a cash on cash, that's really up to you. So you can pay as much as you want in terms of a return on your cash, because you have to put a down payment on a property until and unless you can get that down payment back and continue to own the property and still have a positive cash flow spread, minimum $300 to $500 a month on something, under 150,000. You start getting up to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 house, you want to have bigger spreads. And you get into commercial, you want to have bigger spreads, obviously, on that. But at the end of the day, you need to run your numbers and work it backwards. How much is the property? What is your down payment? What's the mortgage payment going to be? What's your income minus your operating expenses gives you a net income. Then there's a delta between your mortgage and your net income that's your positive cash flow. So you want to calculate those. If you're flipping, if you're buying, selling, flipping, you want to have at least a 30% margin cushion there. So for whatever you bought it, put the money into it to add value and sell it for, you want to have at least a 30% minimum cushion after all expenses, commissions, closing costs, any of that kind of stuff, so that you have a little bit of wiggle room there for the stuff that's going to go wrong, because stuff is going to go wrong. That's whether you're flipping, developing, whatever. If you're just buying a piece of land and selling and you know that you can move it quickly, you're generally not going to have a whole lot of expenses there other than maybe a little bit of maintenance and upkeep, whatever that is, taxes, selling expenses, things like that. So you can have a little bit tighter of a margin on land, but when you're flipping, a building or something like that, you want to have a little bit more. So those are the types of things to know and understand so that is there room in this deal? Does it make sense? Can I make money on it? And how much can I pay for that property?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. What's a good deal? And again, every market's different, right? I always try to give extreme examples, right? I get a lot of people from Silicon Valley, LA, that follow the channel. And I tell them, you can learn Beverly Hills, right? I mean, you could learn if you looked at Beverly Hills, California for 90 days in a row, you could eventually figure out what average is. My guess, it's an appreciating market, which means negative yield. But once you know average, you can figure out, what a good or great deal is. Then people ask me, what's the best market? And I actually tell people that's the wrong question. If you're trying to figure out the best market, you're market chasing, you don't have boots on the ground, your risk profile goes through the roof. What I tell people is real estate investing, being a good real estate investor is a skill. It's not like athletics, like where you're born 6'9" and you could jump out of the building, or you run a faster 100-meter dash than anybody else. Real estate investing is a skill. And because it's a skill, it could be learned. What I tell people is you have to learn it with this laser focus. And then once you got it, like once the light bulb goes off, like I learned average for Fresno, California. I could repeat that in any market across the country in 90 days. That is powerful,
So
right?
I will caveat that.
Okay.
So when it comes to commercial, there are
Ah,
markets that cash flow better than others based on, the price of the assets versus the income that can be brought in, multifamily, commercial. So you can look at different markets for the bigger assets, but
mhm.
primarily for most people watching this, single family vacation rentals, short-term
Ah,
vacation rentals,
yeah.
that is where you can really get great, return ratios, income to purchase price ratios in some markets over others. And primarily, most people that own short-term vacation rentals are going to own them outside of their area. So that is where you can find better cash flow markets. Like for instance, for a while there, like the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee,
Mm,
Gatlinburg, places like that, you could buy properties very inexpensively compared to the income they were bringing in, to where you could get a 30, 40, 50% delta. In other words, a house that you could pay 200,000, 300,000 for would generate $90,000 to $100,000 in rental income. Your expenses are only 20 or 30% of that. Destin, Florida, Pensacola Beach, Florida, Jacksonville Beach, some of those areas for a while, property values had not caught up with the rental incomes,
mm,
versus where I grew up in terms of my business model. I was on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and the best you could do there would be a 10% gross rent multiple. So
mm.
whatever the gross rent was before the boom, about 10 times that was what you would pay for the property. So, and that gap narrowed as prices appreciated, and there was zero cash flow in those properties. So your rents to values got way out of whack, and they are now again because of the demand. But
Yeah.
there's still areas around the country for short-term rentals where you can get a lot of income for the dollar. So for commercial and for short-term rentals, that formula going outside your market is a great way to do. For
Mm,
primary single family rentals, yes, there are some markets where houses are cheaper in comparative to the rents you can get,
mhm.
but those are more difficult. You're going to need a really good property manager in that area that trust. They've been in business forever to manage those properties for you if you're going to invest out of state. And I know that's a popular thing for people that want to get
Mhm.
into single family rentals, but it's highly inefficient for those types of properties.
Yeah. Do you agree that being a good real estate investor is a skill, and because it's a skill, anybody who is dedicated to it can learn it? Do you believe that?
Yeah, it ain't rocket science. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm no genius,
No, neither am I.
and I certainly was no genius when I started. I just learned the business. The really cool thing about real estate is I know there's a lot of programs out there. Everybody's got the one thing you need to know, or the
Mm,
silver bullet, or this. Ain't nothing new under the sun in real estate.
agreed.
Everything that all these, people out there are selling these programs and teaching and calling all these little meme names like sub two and, this, that, or, what's the other one? Astro flipping and all this other stuff. Hey, find one deal and get 30, make 30 returns out of one deal. I mean, that's just finding a buyer that buys multiple properties, and they're calling it astro flipping and turn one deal into 30 deals. That's selling this whole program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This all goes way back to, who I learned from? Carlton Sheets. He
Yeah.
was my
Carlton
first
Sheets.
creative real estate guru that I
Yeah.
learned from 25 years ago. And he'd been doing it for 30 or 40 years. And then, before that, I read some book on how to become a millionaire in real estate that was written in like the 1920s,
Yeah.
about what you buying one house at a time. You buy one, you refinance, take your down payment, buy
Yep.
another, and turning one house into 100.
I actually have that book. It's been out of print for 60 years. The original edition is written by a guy named William Nickerson.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. It
What's
was,
it called?
I think the original was called how to be a millionaire, or like how to make $1 million in real estate or something. I got the original. I paid like, it's embarrassed. I paid like $300 for it on Amazon. It's like this thick. It's a big dark green book. It's been out of print
Yep.
forever.
Yeah. How I turned 1,000 into 5 million in real estate.
Yeah. So the original was how I turned 1,000 into a million, and then it was 5 million and 10 million.
That's it. Yeah. How I turned 1,000 into a million, and then it was 5 million. Yep. That's one of the first books I read
Yeah.
on real estate. So, again, go buy that book, because it's really cool for
Oh
anybody
yeah.
watching. You get it on Amazon.
Yeah. I have it right back there. It's out of print. You are going to pay through the nose. But yeah, and again, the funny thing about it, because you actually go to page one, it starts, he was a Fresno, because again, I happen to invest in Fresno. I didn't know that when I bought the book. He was a Fresno college graduate, and his teacher basically told the class, you're all going to be broke, because it was the Great Depression, right? I think it just ended as he was graduating. I was like, oh my God, This is crazy. So yeah, it was a good book.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what's cool about real estate is that it doesn't take a degree. It doesn't take, you don't have to be a genius, but you have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to learn the fundamentals and the basics, and they have not changed since real estate's been real estate, and people have been buying land, developing land, building and selling, renovating and flipping, buying and holding, all asset types, all asset classes since the beginning of real estate. And, so, I mean, none of this stuff that we talk about in terms of real estate or anything else, is really super complicated. Now, obviously, even with the bigger assets, it's still the same thing. The fundamentals are the same. It's income and expenses. A property is going to bring, it doesn't matter what it is, it's going to bring in a certain amount of income. It's going to have a certain amount of expenses. Now your financing changes with the different types of properties. The way that you need to raise capital and things like that will change. The environmental things that you need to watch out for and be concerned with change when you're going to commercial multifamily, and the types of all the details around it. But at the end of the day, income property is income property. It's income and expenses, just like a business.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, this has been a great topic, a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this again on Labor Day, giving us an hour. How can people follow you and be part of your world?
GregDickerson.com, all my info there on my website, YouTube channel, podcast. So go check it out, GregDickerson.com.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate your time. Take care.